Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. Boo! It's Halloween. And we're so glad you could join us today as we are talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. The horror franchise video game that has finally made it to the big screen. And I am so happy to have with us tonight Catherine Erskine and Riley Lovering Spencer to talk to us about the film. Thank you both for joining me. I appreciate it.
You really got me with that boo.
Are you okay?
I think I will be.
I'm really excited to talk about this film with you. Five Nights at Freddy's is a big deal and making a ton of money at the box office, and I think it'll be a great conversation. For those of you who are unaware, Five Nights at Freddy's tells the story of a troubled security guard who begins working at Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria. While spending his first night on the job, he realizes the late shift at Freddy's won't be so easy to make it through, as the animatronics come alive and have a mind of their own, a murderous mind. As always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers, but I have to know from you both, what did you think of your Five Nights at Freddy's?
So I enjoyed it. I think it was a good movie. Obviously, I haven't heard your guys' reactions to the movie itself yet, but I think I enjoyed it maybe a bit more than you guys. I've been excited for this movie for years and years and years, and wanted this movie to exist before I knew that it was going to exist. Like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise and everything have been a part of my life since I was like in grade 5, I think, when I first played the game, or maybe watched Markiplier play it. I don't know how I first got introduced to it, but so I went into this movie with a lot of expectations, a lot of which did not get met. However, I still had a lot of fun watching it, reliving sort of like, the times when I was young and first found Five Nights at Freddy's and all of that. Was it the best movie I've ever seen, like, in my entire life? No. There were a lot of parts where it could have been a lot better. It was I was describing it as loose cannon to Kat after we had gone and seen it together. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching it. So, and I would definitely going to watch it again. So.
Now, you were a fan. You are a fan of the franchise, as you've said here. Now, I know that you're saying that there are places it can be better, and we can get more specific in that. But did it meet your expectations? Like, as you were there, because I know you've been excited about this for a long time. You and I've talked about this, and what is there, like? Is there 7 games in the series, or there's more?
They keep getting added essentially. So there were the original games, which were created by the guy who made the first game, the first Five Nights at Freddy's. And then what happened is people started to make like fan-based games surrounding the universe. And what the creator essentially did was, if there was a fan-made game, did I freeze again? I don't know. If there was a fan-made game, the creator would either go and play it himself or have someone else go and play it. And if it fit within the canonical lore, they would add it to the canon. So it was bringing the community into it as well. So now I have not updated myself on the lore in probably the last year and a half. But there's so much in there. Stories, short stories, animations, games. Yeah, there's a lot.
And you were picking up on the Easter eggs. I hear there's 51 Easter eggs or something for the fans or something like that. Was that something you were catching?
That's why I want to watch it again. I wasn't able to get all of them. I got the 2 cameos, the one by Matt Pat in the diner, which was really cool. And then the one by, I am completely blanking on his name, but the taxi driver, he was another YouTuber that was big within the fandom as well. The other ones I've heard, like, I was personally heartbroken that Markiplier wasn't in it. I know he's filming his own movie right now, but still, come on, take a day. Least you can do, No, but apparently he was on a poster somewhere, so that's why I want to rewatch it to be able to catch all of those.
When you rewatch it, will you rewatch it back in the theaters?
probably.
Yeah.
And then also probably at my house.
Nice.
Well, that's only 3 nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I know.
Before.
Most people don't survive that many nights.
What about you, Kat? This was your first night at Freddy's.
It was. Ed Riley's right. I was way out of my element, but it was a nightmare just even getting to be able to see it. And we almost got murdered by at least a dozen fans thinking that we were cutting line. But so I was kind of going into it like, what am I seeing here? Like, we had people yelling at us like, this is a fans movie. You shouldn't have press here. You should see it at another time. We're like,
What?
Yeah.
You're serious?
Yes. And another little girl tried to like kill me because she thought I was cutting line and was like accusing me. And I'm like, just calm down. Like, I'm not here to steal your movie. But you know, I grew to appreciate them, to be honest with you, because, and I'm so glad I had Riley next to me, which was probably ruining their experience too, because I'd be like, why did they just yell? Who's that guy?
Half of my movie experience was just explaining the lore.
Yeah, it's like,
That's why he needs to see it again. That's the real reason he missed half the movie, because he's explaining it to you.
So if you want to, as an older person who's never seen these games, other than, I remember back in the day, my students in my classroom would make me sit down and watch run-throughs of the game so that I would get scared by the jump scares. So the only thing I was really looking forward to going into it was the jump scares, because they scare the heck out of you in the game. And so going in and having all of the hardcore like super fans get excited and see that really kind of made the movie better for me. I found out as we were sitting there that Blumhouse was one of the production companies, and I was like, okay, there's hope. Like, I love Blumhouse and I love all that the stuff that they put out. Again, not being a fan and just being, as Riley said earlier, a old person watching this movie. The movie was fine. It was good. It was, the animatronics, I gotta say, were really well done. Like, it was really fun seeing these characters come to life. There was a part in the middle that I just did not understand. The best friends and like building forts together. I'm like, I thought these were supposed to be murderous animals. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe they were building a false sense of security and like that kind of stuff. But overall, for me, what made it was being in the theater with people who loved it, because anytime something came on the screen, they were screaming their heads off, or like, you know, when there were the cameos, people would start screaming and I'd be like, what's going on? Why are we excited? And there was a lot of laughter, and you could really see how people have spent a great deal of their time. And I knew it from my students who played it, but just really loved, and this is a really important movie to people. So for me, as a, do they still call them noobs? Coming into this, I don't know, as someone who didn't know much about it, it's not something I'd watch again. I found that there was a little bit of like waves of like what's happening here, specifically the middle part with the building of the forts and the like everybody's in. I liked the idea of this older brother little sister combo and understanding, like we were talking about briefly, and maybe we'll come back to, about grief and loss and almost the generational aspect of that within this security guard losing a sibling to a kidnapping, which is later revealed is really entwined in this, and the younger sister who didn't know the sibling and had parents die, but is now kind of like the product of both the parents and his grief, because she's ignored and kind of like put to the side as he tries to reconcile his mind with this. So, I mean, that part of the story was fine, but honestly, will I see it again looking for Easter eggs? No, because I don't know what Easter eggs to look for. But when I turned my brain into my Taylor Swift Eras Tour brain and thought, of all of the young people going to see the Taylor Swift movie, and like me being excited to see it, and everyone dressing up and like standing in line for hours and waiting for this movie to come out and singing along in the theater and just really reliving that. I was like, okay, I see this. And these fans really are pretty cool that they would want to get to have this opportunity to see it with us. So I would say disappointment in the fact that the jump scares were there, but they weren't it wasn't scary. I later realized it was PG-13, and I was like, oh, okay, which understandable when there's young people that have enjoyed this movie and you could go with. If you have a kid that's really into this movie, like go with them and see how excited they are. But for me, it was a good experience to see how a younger generation has connected to something out of them. That was what I kind of took away from it. And it was fun. Maybe not for Riley with me in their ear every 5 seconds.
Well, Riley's shaking his head no when you were talking about it being PG-13 being acceptable. So I need to hear
Yeah.
what that's about.
I was hoping that it would be R.
It looked like that in the previews. Like, and there were like 2 incidences with the bear face.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was like, this could have been
I think if they were to, I understand, like you said, I understand why they wanted to keep it PG-13. Because yeah, at the end of the day, it's a video game, so there's going to be kids who want to go and see it. But the entire aspect of the video game is people getting killed. Like that's the entire aspect of the game, right? So I know I was actually very happy that we got the scene at all, but the spring lock scene at the end could have been so much better.
Yeah.
The bite scene, which is of course a reference to the bite of 83.
Which I didn't understand either. What is the bite of 83?
This is one of the parts where they kind of broke canon a little bit. But so how can I explain this very quickly? William Afton, he created it. He had 2 kids, Michael, and then the youngest one. The youngest one, when they were at a birthday party, the kids tricked him into going into the mouth of one of the bears, and the animatronic suit cut him in half. So that was a reference to that.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
But that scene could have been so much better as well. Like a lot of these scenes could have been a lot better if they had done like if they had the restricted thing. Or what other people thought that they were going to do was do a similar thing to what Megan did, was where it was released in PG-13 and then they had an R-rated extended cut that they released after, not in theaters.
Interesting.
Which I think would have also been a perfectly fine thing to do, but they said no, that they're going to keep it PG-13. So my personal thing is that it shouldn't have been PG-13. It should have been at least like TV mature or R. But I understand why they did it.
That makes a lot of sense, because that's what I thought. Like, this is about being scared to death and like being ripped apart, right? But even with that bite, it's like they made it cheaper because it was there was no blood, there was no you just saw shadow. So that makes a lot of sense.
They did it for 3 words. $80 million. That's what they made this weekend. And in reference to the online thing, I think they said they're not going to do it, but this I thought was very interesting. It's one of the rare cases of a major film being released online and in theaters on the same day. So it was online on Peacock in the US the same day that it went, which they did with the Halloween movies. But even nobody was predicting 80 million. I think the high end was 40 or going.
You gotta respect the fandom.
But the fandom could have stayed home to watch it. That's what's interesting. This was like a Halloween party.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
And it became that. And yes, it's PG-13. It's funny, like I mean I got no skin in the game, you know, in terms of whether it's PG-13 or rated R.
You don't? No.
Yeah, but I mean, like I could see the difference. I could see there are moments where you're like, okay, but Jurassic Park is PG-13 and it makes a lot more money because of it.
Mm.
And this reminded me of
Actually,
Jurassic Park,
um,
but not as good.
you know
I'm
what it
just saying.
reminded me of?
What?
That I was really mad that was PG-13 was Suicide Squad.
The first one or the second one?
I didn't see the second one because I was so disappointed by the first one.
The second
But
one
it
is
wasn't
better,
it.
and it's rated R.
See, and that's the thing with Suicide Squad. I was like, why is this PG-13? Like this is DC. It's very like dark. There's I mean Harley Quinn and the Joker's relationship is horrifically toxic, but we had to water it down. So it kind of reminded me of this.
I was worried when I saw that they were doing it PG-13 that they were going to do a very, very safe PG-13. But I was glad that at least you could see that they were kind of pushing it at certain places to the extent that they could while keeping the PG-13 rating. I was so happy that we got a spring lock scene and we got to see the spring lock malfunction. That was really sick. I just think it could have been a lot more. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, because if I'm remembering correctly, like when they did that, that was a really cool scene. Like as someone who's like, oh, now I'm understanding who this person is. I noticed that when they were doing it, I was kind of keeping a close watch. There wasn't blood. There wasn't that like spurts of blood or anything. It was just going. You saw it going in, and I think that's the PG-13 aspect because, oof. And they left it open for a second one. I was gonna ask you, but I never did. Riley, what do you think of like a Five Nights at Freddy 2? Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because they did
Six
leave
Nights
it
at
open.
Freddy's.
Yeah, it would be cool for them to do like a sequel. Like I mentioned a couple times, it was loose canon. They didn't stick exactly to the canonical timeline as far as I am aware of the canonical timeline. So if my hesitation is that because they broke canon so much in this first movie, that if they were to do a second one and make it an actual sequel, like just continuing the story on, they would be forced to continue breaking canon so much that it would almost be a completely different series.
Oh, I see.
Which is what ended up happening with the movie is for Percy Jackson. The first movie broke canon so much that by the second and third movie, it was like you were watching a completely different story. Like, so that's what I'm worried would happen with that, because like even major plot points and the fact that William Afton should have been dead. Like he should not have been alive throughout that entire movie. The daughter also should not have been alive throughout the entire movie. Like these kinds of things, like as far as I am aware of the canonical timeline, when we are introduced in the first game to Five Nights at Freddy's, we have no idea who William Afton is. We have no idea who the daughter is either. They don't come up till the end, but they, as far as I'm aware, are dead. Like when we are introduced to the Five Nights at Freddy's in the first game, they're already dead.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have been there to begin with. So now it's like, were they intending to maybe do a second one and have this one be the prequel in some weird, messed up canonical timeline? I don't know, but this movie broke canon so much that if they were to do a second one, I would be worried about what they were even doing it on.
That makes sense.
It's interesting because, and this may sound strange that I'm comparing it to this, but Harry Potter, they changed things from the book, but they stuck to the book for the most part, or or at least enough of it that it still was that. But it is, I am not a fan of the franchise. I, just like Kat, walked in totally blind. I was just wanted to see killer robots, rip people apart. That's what I thought this was going to be. But there is a lot of lore in this, and I got the Matt Pat reference because my kids love Matt Pat, so I knew, and they always say to me, they're like, he's done like 17 videos of this thing, so I'm like, okay, I understand that. But he is the physical embodiment
essentially of Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
Oh wow.
And people freaked out when he was on screen. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
crazy. It was like, there he is. And I was like, this is fascinating. I agree with everything you said, Kat, about the Eras tour. Anyway, that's another story. But there's an interesting line to walk here, because these are not books, but there is lore, there is story, there are things that fans expect. And you can change a few things, but there's only so long you can do that before the fans turn on you, because they want to see. Because if you know a thing, and I knew enough to know that, and I would lean over. I saw it with a friend of mine, and I would lean over. I'm like, is that from the games? Yeah, it is. It'd be like, I was just like, Kat, Riley, you're probably really glad that you didn't go with both of us, because you'd be doing it on both sides. But it'd be like, oh, water, is that a thing? Oh, yeah, that's a thing. Okay, like, or electricity, stuff like that. Electricity, that's like, you can know a franchise and know facts about it, or you can know a franchise and tell a story from it. Like, you can tell somebody who cares about a franchise over and above somebody who just knows some things about it.
Yeah, and there were certain aspects. I don't think any FNAF fan went into this expecting it to be hard canon. I wasn't. I think if they were to do a movie entirely hard canon, it would not be a very enjoyable movie to watch, because the lore for FNAF, like if you are talking in terms of canonical lore years, I think it spans something like 30 years worth of time, in terms of in-game, right? So it's a slow burn lore. But there were things that they changed, and I could tell that they changed it for the aspect of making it a movie, which is where I was kind of like, okay, right? Like the Springlock scene, right? When William Afton in the games became Springtrap, that's not how his suit malfunctioned. It's not. They referenced to how his suit malfunctioned, which is water, but his suit didn't malfunction by suddenly getting like gang attacked by like Freddy and the boys, right?
Yeah.
Like that never happened.
Okay, so they never turned on him in the games.
No, there were, before we even saw this movies, and like me and Kat obviously saw it before everyone else saw it. So this was like entirely just people talking hypothetically. They were talking about how atrocious it would be if there was even a glimmer of a like, come on gang, let's go and defeat, because that never happened. And the fort building scene, no idea what was going on there. That makes zero sense to me. That was like, I've completely blocked that part of the movie out. It doesn't exist to me, because it was awful. I don't know what was going on. The aspect of all of the animatronics coming together to defeat William Afton, that did not happen. There is in the lore that the kids, the ghosts, want to hurt William for what he did to them. But like I said, in the games, William, he's already dead, so they can't really do anything. Like, he's already Springtrap by the time we're introduced to the aspect of William Afton in the games. So that never happened. And
that was a huge part of the movie.
Yeah.
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and if there's any super fans listening, feel free to correct me, because like I said, it's been a year and a half since I've watched any lore videos. I'm pretty sure William Afton's suit actually malfunctioned, like I said, because of water, but it was actually from like the tears of a child that he was like killing. Like, the tears got onto the mechanisms and snapped on him.
That's why it should be rated R. That would have been great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That would have been an incredible scene to see. But whatever. What was I talking about?
Springlock.
Yeah.
Springtrap.
Springtrap.
Well, it's a Springlock suit, but the aspect of William Afton's soul being a part of the suit is named Springtrap.
Oh, so we're both geniuses. Got it.
Yeah.
for two reasons. First of all, I have to speak to the fact that I think Kat is absolutely right, because I felt like a teacher at a high school Halloween party, in that everybody was fine that I was in the room, but I didn't really belong there. And it was like everybody was this whole party was going on, and then I came out and I ran into some teens that I knew, and I was asking them how they felt about the movie, and it was really interesting. Like I was handling my thoughts on the film. I was coming at it more as a film critic, and
Hmm.
there were moments where I said something that I didn't like, and I got this look of like, what?
You.
And I went, and I realized then, I'm like, okay, they just want either me not to talk because it's their night, or just tell them it's great. Not because they don't want to hear it, but because they're just happy. Like this was their moment. They were so excited. And I can understand that. I totally can understand that. Um,
Like when you cheated on me and went to the Eras tour movie without me.
that's for another podcast. You should come on that one, actually.
Well, you're coming to see the movie again with me and Murray, so
I don't think I can bring myself to do that, but I can
you
understand
will.
the connection is there. But in all seriousness, and because there were things about this movie that I thought were great. There were actually things I thought were really well done. I liked the visions in the head sort of moments. I thought
Mhm.
they worked. I thought the animatronics were excellent, and
Yeah.
they were legit animatronics. I thought this is good. The one thing that bugged me, and I was so grateful at the end when the guy takes the head off and it's him underneath, because you can see him in it, and I saw him in it when he comes out in the suit, and I'm like, oh no, could they not pay? Is the
Budget
CGI,
cuts.
the budget cuts? And then he took it off. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I was like, that scene in the middle with, I mean, we've already talked about it. The tent or the fort.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's happening? Why is this happening? And I could tell Riley that them turning on him was not part of the lore. And I don't even know anything about the lore because it felt so wrong. It felt so wrong to the world they created, and yet not, because they made them cuddly at the same time. And it's
Yeah.
like, it was so interesting. And I sat there and I was like, there are things about this movie I think were actually quite good. And I was like, this is, but it's not well written.
They had to fit the whole thing, like Riley was saying, and like I was thinking about it, like you have to fit everything into one movie and you have to wrap it up in a movie setting. But like, yeah, that 14 was ridiculous. And I was like, oh, they're trying to trick the young girl into thinking they're safe so that they can steal her soul. But then again, they turned on the the other character and ended up killing him and not taking her, and it didn't even really seem like that big of a fight. The only thing that stuck out to me about that scene was looking back on it. I remember looking at the police officer
The
who,
woman.
yeah, the woman, and she was actually like very comfortable and cozied up with them. Like I think she even had like was holding the hand of one of the characters or laying on the shoulder of one of the characters, and I was like, she's closer to this than I really feel bad saying this, but I did not think she did a great job with the acting. Like she was very like right away you knew she was involved because she's like, oh no, you sure, like it wasn't great. But then it when she was in that scene, I was like, oh, she's a lot closer to these bears than I thought. And I didn't know that they were young children until he had the first dream, and then I realized every one of them symbolized every one of the animatronics. But
I thought that
Yeah.
I thought that was actually liked. I liked that. Like there was a
yeah, it was
story there that I
good.
liked. But you know what really kicked me was a line at the end when the girl says, "I want to go back and see them." And I mean, it's not even like a problem. Like obviously they're setting up for a sequel. That's fine. But what bothered me is that to me it just made them like I again, not a fan of the franchise, but I'm like, I know Disney's Haunted Mansion, which we're not talking about at the end. They're all like, someone's got to take care of the ghosts, and I was more okay with it there because it was already sort of like a
Okay.
comedy. And this one, it was like you're supposed to be scared of these things.
Yeah, you're supposed to be terrified of
You're
them.
not supposed to want to go back for 6 nights at Freddy's. Like that's the thing. That's the point, right? Like you're supposed to. If you survive 5 nights, good for you. Is what I understand. Um, have either of you seen a movie called Willy's Wonderland?
Sounds like it would have the R version you were talking.
It
That
does.
movie is so
Willy's
funny. That movie
Wonderland.
was hysterical.
It's so good, and it knows it's bad. Like it is a bad movie. It is a bad movie. Nicolas Cage.
Oh, that's why.
No, he's not the problem. It's just bad. But his character is hilarious because he doesn't say a word the entire film. He's just like it's the same thing. Security guard, pizza place,
Oh, I'm
devil.
literally just reading it now, and
It's the
it's like
same
literally the
movie.
same thing.
It's the same movie, but it was clearly made and rushed out. Like they heard this was that I'm interpreting myself. Like you, but looking back on it, you can be like, Five Nights at Freddy's is popular. They're making a movie. We got to get this thing out fast. Let's film it this weekend. Like it was that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Oh wow.
And I have to say, as a person not invested in the franchise, I enjoyed it so much more because it was as silly and still violent. It had the violence, it had the stuff that
Mm.
you would that as an outsider I would have expected in this.
Well,
And
it's
it
got a promising sequel update.
Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, it's clearly a ripoff of Five Nights at Freddy's. It really, Five Nights at Freddy's. It absolutely is. But there's something about it that's so wacky that and again, maybe it's my age and that I connect better with Nicolas Cage than I do with these characters that I don't know. Could be. I just thought it was more fun. I don't know. Riley might hate me for saying that, but
No,
can see
that movie was a ton of fun. I do prefer FNAF just for the fact of the history and the love I have for that franchise. But Willy's was a hysterical movie. I watched that movie. I think the fact that Nicolas Cage has absolutely zero speaking lines the entirety of the movie is just absolutely his. All he does is drink energy drinks and like grunt, and it is so fun.
Oh, I need to see this.
you do.
Um,
You do.
yeah. Like that movie was so much fun, and I can see how you, like, and I know you mentioned this when you were saying that you had connected with the youth that you knew, like you were going into this more as a film critic than a avid
Fan.
enjoyer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see how you, as looking at it from the lens of like a film critic type person, would enjoy Willy's Wonderland more because as a standalone movie, put them side by side, Willy's is going to win. But put them side to side as keeping in mind the fact that Willy's is a standalone and arguable ripoff, as enjoyable as it was, and FNAF being backed by like 13 years worth of lore and games and fandoms. There's that aspect to it as well, right? I also just
I
wanted to
totally
say
agree.
just another little thing, because I know you guys had brought up Vanessa, the security
That's
guard.
it. Thank you.
That was another aspect where they broke canon. Vanessa is supposed to be Michael Afton, younger sister. And as far as I'm aware, they never distinctly said it, but I'm pretty sure they broke canon again, and I'm pretty sure the main guy, Mike, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be Michael Afton, which would make no sense. But that's kind of what they were pertaining to, because Michael Afton in the games had a younger brother who disappeared, who disappeared, and then was found out that it got killed by a animatronic, and that William was at play. So like, it was leading to that. But point being, Vanessa is supposed to be his younger brother. And she is also supposed to be dead. She
Oh.
was supposed to be killed as like a young girl. It is canonically correct that Vanessa looked up to her father, and loved his creations. So that aspect that you were saying where she was like laying and on one of the animatronics and holding hands, that is canonically correct. She adored the animatronics. She ended up getting killed by one that was made specifically for her because the processor in the animatronic that was supposed to be able to distinguish between his daughter and just another girl that they were supposed to lure and kill went
Yeah.
haywire, and it killed her. So she was also supposed to be dead. There were quite a few people in this movie that were supposed to be dead.
What's so interesting about their choices and the choices they made, and I think like going back to what you said, Steve, about like it's so interesting that they made this much money in the theaters versus the fact that people could have stayed home and watched this, is that this game is from as far back as seeing my kids I worked with in school, is so much of a community thing. And like who wouldn't want to get together with all their friends who've been
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
at home alone playing this game and come and see it together? Like I definitely can understand that. And it just talking about the lore and all of that and having those like ups and downs with it, as an person who is higher in the age brackets, it makes me think of like my passion for like Halloween and Scream and all of those. That Halloween 3 was horrific. It was a terrible movie and it should be ripped out of the lore forever. And even Scream 4. Scream was one of my favorite movies, which the biggest jump scare for me in this movie was seeing how old Matthew Lillard is. And
Scooby
then
or Shaggy?
realizing I'm not that much younger than him. I literally gasped out loud when I realized it was him, because I'm like, no, 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 you were in Scream. You're in one of my like favorite genres, favorite movie series, and you are older now. Does that make me older? But having the community out is not surprising to me, because when you love these movies and you love these like after a while sequels as the games did, you want to be with other people that are just as excited as you are instead of watching it at home. Like I could wait and watch the Eras tour when it comes out on video, which it will, but I want to see it in the theater with other Taylor Swift fans and
You
be able
know,
to sing along and yell and do all that stuff.
of course, and you know what? There are franchises that I love
Mm.
that I would be the same way. I would, not necessarily dressing up or something, but you come out of it, and you have somebody who's not in that, and come away, and you're like, but this story matters to me for whatever reason, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
that you've played the games or whether there's something, a character you connect with. If there's a franchise you love and they do it, and it finally makes the jump to a screen, or there's a new entry and you really, you're passionate about it, and there's always that extra
Yeah.
edge.
That's why this entire time, even though I've been like, um, this is for Screenfish crapping on various aspects of their lore choices for movies. And I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm gonna watch it again, and probably more than just once,
It makes perfect
despite
sense.
the fact that wasn't
Yeah.
really the main purpose of going to see the movie.
Yeah.
And
No, I
for
could.
what it's worth, like whether this movie is fantastic or not fantastic, or I thought it was like, you know, could have been better, could have done this. The fact that people who are in older generations are going to see it that don't know about it, like it's a smart move for the games, because I can tell you, I let a friend read my review and they're in their 40s and they're like, yeah, I went back and read about all of the games after I read your reviews. The friend that I brought to the theater with me knew nothing about it, and she's downloaded it onto her Oculus, and she's like, you gotta come play, it's so fun, especially in the Oculus. And it's getting more people out there, and it's bringing that love of the game back. I bet you all of those people in that theater went home and replayed a couple of times at least.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually had the same thought. I thought I'd give it a try. I've never been interested in it, but I'd give it a try. I wouldn't let my
Yeah.
kids play it, but I would do it.
You couldn't handle it.
I probably could.
You could not
The
handle
game? I could handle it as a game.
it. Yeah.
I could handle it as a game.
It's a lot scarier than the movie is.
Maybe
I
not
can
on
hear your
Oculus.
shrill screams from here.
Be a fly on the wall for the day that Steven plays Five Nights at Freddy's.
Challenge accepted.
You have to play it in the dark. You have to have all the lights
Oh
out.
no, you have weird standards, but all right. I want to talk about something related to this film that I thought was really interesting, because there was something story-wise that I thought was fascinating. And I don't know how lore related it is. I'm certainly, Riley, you can speak to that. But it was the idea of trauma and its and the mark that it leaves, because I think there's a number of characters in this, not just the children that are killed in the robots, but there are a number of characters who, even after their death or disappearance, are still bearing the scars of that. And I thought that was a very interesting way to do it, almost like it continued to echo on. I was wondering what you thought of that. Riley can also speak to whether or not that's part of the canon as well, but I just thought that was an interesting idea.
Was that canon?
You okay?
Like,
Everybody stop
yes,
talking.
there
I'm
is
No.
like yes, there is the aspect of that type of trauma happening throughout the games. Because like I said, in the games, Michael Afton, if that is who the character Mike is supposed to be, which I'm pretty sure he is, like I said, his younger brother did get killed. And he didn't know it was his dad for a long time, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, there was I'm actually just reading through a fandom thing right now, but yeah, his main goal was to find William, which was also happened in the movie as well, in terms of the fact, like, he didn't know it was William Afton, but his entire goal was, like, in life, was to find the guy who took his brother. So it, like, is canon, but it isn't. Those aspects.
It's so interesting. Like, that was kind of almost like the best part, and figuring that out and seeing it from the first part where he thinks that guy is kidnapping the kid in the mall. It was like, oh, this guy's either been kidnapped before or he's had drama with kidnapping. But and she was quiet, she was reserved, and she was drawn into herself, and the sister. And I can see why, because she probably had to be like that and disappeared in the family because of everyone's trauma in regards to not just the death of a child and a brother, but the unknown. What could I have done differently? What could I have seen? And this hunger to go back and make it all right again, and that you may have either caused it or not, and the unknown of that. I don't know if they ever said that they never found him, was the message that I kind of took away from that. So having that kind of trauma and that lasting trauma, and then having this younger sibling who you now have to look after when all you're doing is running to the past, you can see that it's generational, right? Like, from him and then down to his younger sibling, and they're both handling it differently. She's keeping quiet and out of the way, and I didn't understand why she wasn't eating. I don't know if that was because she stopped eating when her parents died, or if that was just her kind of like, pay attention, like, I need you to notice this about me. But that makes it, really did speak a lot to what I've seen about people just wanting to go back and see what they could have done to change it, and losing out on what they have here, which is another aspect of generational trauma. But it was, the good thing for me was that, like, he was given an opportunity to stay there forever with his family or go back to his sister, and he said he wanted to stay. But then the second that he made that decision, he knew it was the wrong one, and he knew he had to go back for his sister. But I like that they put it in there that he chose to stay with the family instinctually, because a lot of people might do that. A lot of people would make that choice to go back and to be with that family or that parent or sibling or child that you lost, and stay with them and leave the ones who are there already behind. So in that respect, I thought they did well with it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, I mean, for a film that's all about running for killer robots, and again, I know there's all this backstory and lore, but I thought it was really interesting for them to handle this particular story this way. Like, the scars they're experiencing echo throughout eternity to to really over-grandize it, but it seems like there's ripple effects, right? Like, even these kids, they're appearing as ghosts, and they're still dealing with whatever has happened to them. And you could tell there were moments where the writing held back because the PG-13, they didn't want to discuss it too much, but they dropped those hints of like, yeah, like the moment where they go, he was a really bad man, and it was sort of like, oh, okay. But even for him, like, this idea of getting trapped in that himself, and deliberately every night going there, like these taking medication so that he could continue to fix things in his mind. I thought that was actually a very interesting way to handle it. Like I said, there were things about the film I thought were quite interesting.
And that fact that he was missing what was right in front of him,
Yeah.
because his sister was interacting with those same children, but in a way that was like, they would run from him, but they took in his sister because she was one of them, and she was drawing them for ages. And it took him almost losing her to realize she had known about this all along and had a different experience, and had to help him see what was going on.
Yeah, that was interesting with the sister. And again, I don't know if this is canon, Riley, but the whole aspect of the sister having experiences of these ghosts beforehand. Yeah, which I was okay. From a writing perspective, this is strictly from a writing perspective. I thought they were going to do a whole thing where, hey, I talked to these robots, and he was going to say, I don't believe you, because they'd established that she talks to all these to ghosts, and she was like, I talked to these guys, they're my friends, they're right here. And I went, wow, you let the air out of that balloon really quick. I was like, oh, okay. But no, like her interaction with them was interesting. These kids, I don't know whether they were this is where I'm unclear. Were they trying to lure her because she was like them? Because she didn't go through what they went through.
Or they were warning her.
Or are they warning her? Or are they trying to protect her? Like, I was not clear.
Yeah.
On that.
I can't say for certain, because in the games there was never an aspect of a child.
Oh, there was never a sister?
No. So an interesting thing though about what Kat said about how the kids, the ghost kids, acted differently with the brother versus the sister. It's that aspect isn't canon, but there is a way that I am headcanoning that I have attached it to the actual lore canon. So in the first game, the person who is like that you are playing as, his name is Michael Schwartz. And it is later revealed that it's actually Michael Afton, the son of William Afton.
The guy you are?
Yes. And the reason that the animatronics are attacking you at night is because they thought that he was William.
Which would explain
Oh.
why they ran.
Which would explain why in the movie, if this guy, Mike, that we are viewing the life of, because they never actually say his last name throughout the entirety of the movie. You can watch it over again if you want, but they never once say his last name.
Interesting.
So if this guy, Mike, is actually Michael Afton, who I'm pretty sure he is, then that would make sense as to why they were more hypothetically drawn towards this child.
And they didn't,
This
and
younger girl than the guy that in the actual games they were trying to kill because they thought it was the guy who had killed them.
Interesting.
and if I'm right, in this film, didn't they say like his dad was gone or something like that? Like, wasn't his mom with a stepdad in this film?
Yeah, something like that. I wasn't really paying attention to his parents a lot, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I was like, are they dead? I can't remember.
But yeah, so that's just an interesting aspect of the
Hmm.
ghost kids and their interactions there. I don't really 100% know about the interactions with the kid though. That's something that, as far as I'm aware, was never canon. But the aspect of the kids running from this guy that the entire movie I was pretty sure was Michael Afton was interesting to see.
Mm.
One thing that was interesting about the aspect of Freddy being in that movie is how little Freddy was in that movie.
Yeah.
He was. Even at the end, okay, so they stun him with the water. This is what I mean writing, right? You took out the main guy first. You know, in Die Hard, they don't take out the big bad first. He's not. I know that he wasn't the big bad. William Atherton was the big bad, but he's the poster, and you knocked him out with another guy, and it
Yeah.
was like
They never even used his theme song. That is
they
like
did in the
that
credits, though, didn't
song.
they?
Oh.
That song is iconic throughout the games.
It's in the credits, though, isn't it? I saw everybody dancing to it during the credits.
Well,
Was that
I know they played the Living Tombstone during the credits. If they were dancing and singing, that is not Freddy's.
It's not the Freddy theme. Oh, okay.
But no, in the games, if Freddy, in the first game, if Freddy gets too close to the security office, I'm pretty sure it's if the door is open to the security office and he's like standing outside, there's a track that plays every single
Oh.
time. Bum bum ba bum 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 ba bum ba bum. Like there's this track that plays.
Hmm.
They didn't use that at all. The only character theme that they used was Foxy's. Foxy was the only person, well, that's the only one that actually did any chasing at all.
But see, this is what I mean about writing issue, right? Like, it's fine to change things. For you're always going to change things for an adaptation. It's just you have to. Things can never be everything that's been from book to film or game to film. They've made changes. Fine. But know why you're changing it. Like, you can have a film where you're like, okay, well, oh, there's killer robots, so we got to have killer robots.
Hmm.
But there's some, if some, like, who, I don't know who made the film, I don't know who directed it, but there are little things like this that they should have picked up on. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's, and they wasted Freddy. I thought they wasted Freddy, and I have no skin in this game. Like, I'm not invested, and I was mad for it. I was like, he's in this shockingly little. See, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I really kind of wanted to like this movie a lot more than I did, and I meant that. Like, I knew it wasn't for me, and I knew with the fandom, I actually genuinely loved your review, Kat, because I'm like, that taps into this moment that I didn't know. I mean, I knew it was popular, and I knew it was going to be a big deal, but I didn't know.
It's huge.
I didn't know. Like, so when I went in there and I'm seeing all these people dressed up, I'm like, really? For
Yeah.
this?
I'm actually curious about something. Give me a sec.
Um, And I wanted it to be, I wanted to come out of it and say, man, you won me over. You really
Yeah.
did.
And that's what I wanted too. I was like, you know what, this could be like really cool. And it could be like it's Bloomhouse, it's
Yeah.
like all of this, and I'm like, Bloomhouse can be scary in the right moments, and this could be amazing. And I'm like, could this be like one of my new like, oh, this is a really great scary movies? But
We're starting to run out of time, but this has been great. I really appreciate you both, but we should screen it or skip
oh
it.
yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's, screen it or skip it.
Screen it, 100%. It was a really fun movie.
If you're gonna screen it, go with a young person who's really into the movies, because the joy that you'll get watching them watch this movie, for real though, like the joy that I got watching these young people really enjoy this movie was it made it more fun for me. I normally go see it, as I said in my review. If you know nothing about this movie and you know nothing about this franchise, you're not missing anything by skipping it. But if you have someone that loves this franchise, take them and go with them and kind of get an insight into what they're interested in. And it's I you know what, I left respecting the fandom. And now I want to play Five Nights at Freddy's, but so skip it unless you have a young person to translate it for you.
I'm gonna echo that. That's exactly how I felt. Honestly, if you are a fan, enjoy your moment. Go.
Yes.
Enjoy your moment.
And dress up and have fun.
Do it. Go and enjoy. But you can skip it. I mean, I saw it to try and understand it. That's great. But I mean, do I think it's high cinema? No. I would say I would see a second one. I would hope it's better written. That would be what I'm saying. Like, there are so many things I think.
And with a higher rating.
I think you can do it well with a PG-13, but your writing
No,
can't
we
let you
learned
down.
from Suicide Squads, we cannot do that. You
But
cannot take a fandom and make it
Jurassic
PG.
Park can pull it off. Anything can pull. I mean, like, not every one of them did, but Jurassic Park never faltered because it was PG. It was just because it was bad writing.
Ooh.
That's what I thought.
Anyone who from the fandom who wants Steve's home address, please contact me.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, honestly, enjoy your moment. I blessings. I'm thrilled. I just, you know, it wasn't my moment, but I did. There were things about I really liked. I told you these conversations about trauma I thought were really interesting. Animatronics were good.
Or screen it if you want to look cool.
If you want to look
I mean,
cool.
I legitimately the next day I had a meeting with a client who's in grade 5 at their school for lunch, and I sat down and I unboxed our lunch together, and I was like, guess what I saw yesterday? You're like, what? And I'm like, Five Nights at Freddy's. And she was like, oh, it seems so bad. I'm like, I know.
That was your moment.
I got credit.
Pat enjoyed her moment. Is the credibility.
She's like, was this what this happened? Did this happen? And I'm like, I don't know any of the names of the characters.
I was about to say, did you mention the fact that you pointed at the poster that was on screen before the movie started and went, so, Riley, what are all of that?
I left that part out. What is cute little animals?
Well, they were pretty cute and cuddly in this film anyway. Thank you to you both. This has been so much fun, and I've learned a lot, so I appreciate this. This is one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you, Riley, and so Kat and I could learn. But and for you at home, a reminder, you can find us wherever podcasts are available, and you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can smash that subscribe button. where you will hear other fantastic conversations on Screenfish Radio and and interviews with other industry professionals as well. If you go to the podcast page at screenfish.net, you can download Fishing for More, which help small group conversations to help you get the conversation started where you are about the film and your fandom. Enjoy your moment. So to you both, thank you once again, and for you at home, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.